Hello and welcome to the eLab Innovationspodcast, the podcast on e-mobility for research and industry. My name is Simon Voss and I'm the Managing Director of eLab, and today I'm delighted to welcome Christoph Lienemann, Managing Director of PEM Motion North America. Chris is an expert on building up various business units across the globe, and therefore we talk about the different innovation strategies and cultures and what we can learn from them. I'm happy to welcome Chris at eLab and looking forward to the conversation.
What is missing, I think, is a network of ecosystems, or an ecosystem of ecosystem, or a global ecosystem. Yeah, so that's my vision, to create this kind of global network of ecosystem building on the local strengths. Yeah, so I think it's important to grow closer together locally, finding new partners, but also understanding where I maybe don't have the knowledge, the competence.
Chris, welcome in the eLab.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Thank you for being here. Before we talk about innovation per se, I would like to ask you, even though this is a business-related podcast, a personal question. What brought you to e-mobility and, more specifically to your current position at PEM Motion North America?
Thank you for the question. I think that's also the most motivating one for me. So e-mobility somehow is my love since 12 years. And it was a lot of coincidence, to be honest, which brought me where I am today. So
if I may ask, how far back do we go when we talk about coincidence and then you entering the field of e-mobility?
2009 was my first encounter with e-mobility. And back then, no one was really yet talking about e-mobility, I think. So it was a really small topic. I remember I got a Hiwi job at the WZL Institute with Achim Kamka back then. And Achim, Professor Schuh, Christoph Deutzkins, they had the idea to produce an electric car in Germany. And they were searching for a team to do so.
What later became the street scooter, right?
That's correct, yes. So back then it was just an idea. I was tasked to do research about electric mobility. So I was doing a lot of research, and there was the Tesla Roadster, for example. That was the first electric car coming to the market. And somehow it fascinated me, both from a sustainability perspective, but also from an engineering technology perspective. So I was very curious about it. Also about the torque, about all these nice things we like.
The engineering points of
it. And I was lucky to be part of that street scooter team and joined the whole journey. I was tasked to register the name street scooter, for example. You can argue if it's a nice name or not, but I was at least the one helping with the registration or the homepage, the first homepage. I was tasked to do. And I mean, as a student, that was perfect for me. So I learned a lot. I was really curious about it, and I really felt the energy. And it was great to see all this progress. I also remember when there was two designers from Italy doing design sketches for the first street scooter. That was fascinating for me.
Was this still when it was aimed to be a passenger car?
Yes.
Or?
So the first one was aimed to be a passenger car, correct?
Yes.
And then
later the business model kind of changed more in the direction of logistics and cargo. Yeah.
Correct. So it was amazing to be on the IAA with a product, but also then Angela Merkel sitting in the car. It's just, I mean, I didn't really notice what we are doing. So for me, it felt like, it's just my Hiwi job, and I'm working with Achim, with Christoph, and it was just, I didn't understand what we are doing there, how cool it is. And that's maybe also a little bit connection to my current job in the US. That would be a hell of a story, and we are quite, we are doing that, and we're just doing it, and we're doing it good. So after my studies, I studied business engineering and mechanical engineering. I also studied in China for a year, did my internship in Russia, and then came back here. And was thinking about, what to do now. And as I loved this topic of electric mobility, there was just the PEM Institute.
So it was not a question whether you will continue with electromobility, but
yes. So for me, that was
the question on how you want to continue with electromobility.
That I want to continue with electric mobility was clear for me. And then I was looking into different jobs. I applied at BMW. I got a position at BMW. I also applied at Mahle, at some other larger companies, consulting companies. But somehow what was happening here with the team, but also with the topic and with the whole infrastructure here in Aachen developing, that was just amazing. Although I was always saying I'm not staying in Aachen. I want to go out of Aachen. If you study here, it's maybe 5 years is enough.
Yeah, sure.
I want to see the world.
Got it.
But then somehow what the PEM Institute offered was unique. And the institute was very small then. I think we were 6-7 people. And it was cool to build this kind of institute from the ground up. The building we are sitting in was not existing. So it was just being planned, and I was part of being of the planning team. So I love that. I really learned a lot at my time in the institute. I became a group leader for the battery production. And then 2016, we had the first projects in Mexico with a Mexican client, Metalsa, and then also with a German client, BMW. And then, we decided to build a company in Mexico. And it was my first encounter with the Mexican culture. I've never been before in Mexico, but I love to work internationally, and I always wanted to have this kind of Aachen is not enough.
So that was you then working for a German company, but not remotely, but you were then in Mexico for some time?
Yes,
right?
I was several times in Mexico for a project.
So you're flying back and forth basically between the continents.
So and it was very funny. So we wanted to bring electric mobility to Mexico. Logistic vehicles, and I was driving or I was monitoring different vehicles and seeing the operation. So I was one day delivering beer, one day delivering sausages in Mexico, just to understand the process and how an electric car could fit, and maybe optimize it, save money. So it was really cool to also understand really the struggles they have on the road with the temperature and all of that. And gave me really a profound understanding of the Mexican logistic market, but also on the vehicle market. And then...
but more from an applicational point of view? Or
correct, yeah. But we also worked with a tier 1 company there quite closely, and also with BMW and their new plant in San Luis. So we helped setting up the plant, or not setting up the plant, but we were tasked with creating a training program for the new operators for the logistics. So we designed a whole training area with SAP processes, with a whole training environment, with games, so they can learn differently. Not just having a presentation, but really also trying something out, having fun while learning. So we trained more than 1,000 people in the ramp-up.
So that was more than just engineering and innovation per se on a technical end, but probably also a lot of like not social, but teaching and like didactics.
Correct, and also understanding the culture, and a little bit also the society and what is different there. Then you cannot just copy paste something from here to there. That's very important. And then after my time at the institute, there was a chance to manage all of this, and I decided, that sounds interesting. We also understand that Mexico is maybe not enough or not the right market for innovation per se. So we need to also look into the US, into the Silicon Valley. So we started our first projects in the US.
And that is something we will also look at later a little bit more in detail, right? Why also the step why you went to California, for example.
Exactly. So that's where I'm right now. So
cool.
I wanted to move over. COVID came. I have a visa. I could still move. Some of my colleagues moved. So Thomas is in Mexico. Mark is in California. We just found it also in Canada. So there are also teams locally. But I understood also during my time in COVID that it's important to have someone here holding up the flags and saying, hey, we still have a team over there. I need your support. Because we are still very small over there. And it's also still important to have this kind of collaboration between the countries. So I'm currently traveling again, but I don't plan to move anymore. I'm probably moving now for 1-2 months, but more like because I like it there.
Interesting. So what we're talking about is basically a network that you're trying to build, right? Like I think you mentioned in the introduction that you find the Aachen network around our WTH Aachen and Professor Kampke and everything that is surrounded here very inspiring, and what I see parallels, if I may say so, what you're trying to push forward right now, right? You said you built up a business unit in Mexico, then you moved to Silicon Valley. You're thinking, or starting out in Canada as well right now. So may I ask, what is from a business perspective, from an innovation perspective, what is the big picture? What is the underlying strategy of this?
Yeah, maybe I start with a small picture before I tell you the big picture.
Okay.
Because I think, first of all, what happened here in Aachen is we built an ecosystem of companies, of universities, with the ramp-up factor, with the eLab.
Yeah.
And that helped to bring up innovations like the street scooter, for example, or other startups which are still popping up here.
Yeah.
Creating jobs, creating new knowledge, creating investment into the region. And especially here in the region, I think it's important to have it because we have the coal. We need to somehow think about new ways.
Revier is the hashtag.
Revier, yeah. So we need to think about new business opportunities here. And I think a lot of regions are struggling with this question. So I think we are not the inventor of this ecosystem idea, of this innovation ecosystem, nor are we the only ones. There are many ecosystems like this popping up worldwide.
Yeah, but I think you are a good example on I don't want to use the word role model because it says that, or it sounds like that you're the only one. I think not, but you're a good example for innovation that is currently going on, and with the network focus.
Yeah, and I think we are, maybe in the US it's the problem, we are a little bit too humble.
Okay.
If you look what really happened here over the last 10 years in e-mobility, in the US, 10% of this would be a huge story already. And that was maybe the reason why we went to California. So they heard about it, they want to see it, they came here with a delegation, and they said, hey, we want to build such ecosystem in Sacramento, in California, in the capital. And there were a group of the universities, the colleges, private investors, but also public companies. And they asked us, hey, how could that look in Sacramento? So we were tasked to...
So right in Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah, it's next to Silicon Valley.
Well,
it's a 2 hours drive to San Francisco.
From a German perspective, it's like one there.
Yes, it's also for American perspective, still part of the ecosystem. It's the capital, so a lot of future regulation is decided in Sacramento. A lot of regulators are sitting there. So CARB, the California Air Research Board, that's the one who found the diesel scandal a while ago. So they were here. Actually, the guy who did this study, he had a lot of interesting stories to tell. So he was here.
You're probably going to invite him at some point.
Yeah, it would be great. So they're actually also member of the Humanotop. Anyway, so they were here and they tasked us to create a concept how that could look like in Sacramento. And we came up with the California Mobility Center together with them. And the idea is to build a local ecosystem. And it's not a PEM ecosystem, so there's nowhere written PEM, California Mobility Center, but it's really a local initiative with local players, with local champions who are driving that. Mainly the universities, college, SMUT, the local utility. They are fully committed for green energy now. So it's the biggest utility in the US. And they are heavily investing into clean energy and e-mobility. Yeah. So they wanted to have this kind of center. And for us, of course, that is great to bring what we learned here to the US to help to establish it there, but also understanding what are the local strengths, what makes the community where they are leading in their innovation field, where California is leading, where the Silicon Valley is leading. So
you bring value, but also you learn by being there, by having the experience, working together.
Yeah, so we bring maybe the blueprint or the method, what we learned, maybe what they shouldn't repeat. Yeah. But the focus area there is a little bit different than here. So here we are focusing, of course, on the drivetrain components, on the manufacturing side, on the engineering side, as Germany is also a car country, a lot on the vehicle itself. And there it's a little bit more on the software side, on the innovation side. So really crazy things. Investment is a big topic. So there's a lot of money available for such innovation. So and now
I think, if I may say that really quick, I think the electric car there is more understood more in the way of a rolling computer rather than a car like a mechanistic
but
car.
still what I find interesting is that even if you look at a Tesla, it still looks like a car.
Sure.
It has four wheels, it has a
of course.
steering
But from
wheel.
an innovation and development point of view, I mean.
Correct. But if you look then at companies like Zoox, for example, the vehicle looks completely different. So there's no steering wheel. You don't face the road anymore. So you're just sitting, you can work, you can read. and they want to change also the way how we move. They want to change the mobility itself, not only the vehicle.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to work with such companies. So we learn also a lot, of course, here. But on the other hand, we can help them with production topics. So they are just normally young startups, so they are lacking on talent. They're lacking on they cannot hire so quickly as they grow. So they need external support and experience, and we can help with that.
So because I asked for the big picture, so now we just put it in perspective. You kind of go into or build a nucleus, kind of, and a little innovation hub there to understand the market, to really gain experience how the innovation there is happening, right? And then, in my understanding, you move kind of to the next location and trying to really understand again, like how is innovation happening there? What can we learn from them, and what can we also offer them to foster, to accelerate their innovation? Is that correct?
I would call it different, but yes. I would call
use your words. You're free to describe it as you like.
I think I always like to say we like to plant seeds. We like to plant seeds and make the seed grow till it's really able, till it's a strong tree. So there's no wind able to blow it. But it needs some help at the beginning, so you need to nurture it. You need to plant maybe 2-3 seeds next to each other. Also making sure the ecosystem is functional. So if you compare it to a forest, it's like it needs time. It needs also, there are no rules. So you need to rather create a space where that can happen, where it can safely happen. And maybe sometimes also a plant don't make it. So that's a little bit different culture also in North America. And now the idea is to...
So it's more ruthless, or
no,
how would you say?
Because
it sounds like not stating this now, but live or die, like make it or not, so to speak. Or is it because here we live? I think the innovation here is happening in a little bit more social way. I understood. Like we are more hesitant; it needs longer. But maybe the you cannot fall that deep if you fail, or maybe we could.
It's an interesting question. So
we could elaborate on this a little bit, because I don't know when you're saying if they make it or not, what does it really mean, right over there? When you don't make it here, what does it mean here? And maybe the question to you, having the experience in both on both continents, how would you compare failing there and failing here?
Many questions at once, but I like the direction.
we can detangle them.
Let's start with the ruthless. So I don't think it's ruthless. I think it's more honest.
Okay.
So you directly get a more direct answer. So you wouldn't carry ideas which are doomed to fail. As long as
you would talk about failure more openly, perhaps. Then?
And it's okay to fail. So I think you have fucked up stories, so it's okay to talk about it. It's also a motivation as long as you learn from that failure. Okay. Of course, if you repeat mistakes, it's still not a smart idea to do that. But humans fail.
Yeah, it's part of the game.
Ideas fail. It's part of the game. So I think they are just more direct and more understanding of that necessity. In general, I think first of all the culture is very different. I agree. So here it's more social for the innovation, a little bit slower also.
Okay.
And I think you need both. So the Silicon Valley is driving a lot. So there's much money invested in new technology, but you don't see that being produced in Silicon Valley. So it's not possible to do it there. So it still spreads out to other locations. And maybe you get feedback then also from larger companies. Companies get bought and so on. So it's a huge process. And I would still compare it to an ecosystem, but maybe not ruthless. I don't think the nature is ruthless. I think the nature is beautiful, and you just need to let it happen. And,
interesting.
Give it some kind of framework. And now, to answer your question for the big picture, so we did that in California. We are currently doing that in Mexico and also in Canada with the Canadian Automobility Hub in Windsor. We are in talks to do that in India, in Rwanda, and Africa, to create such hub ecosystem.
To plant the seeds.
To plant the seed, thank you. Exactly. And my vision is to create, so this ecosystem is definitely not our idea. We are not the only ones creating those ecosystems worldwide.
Yeah.
The MIT is doing it. Austin is, they attracted Tesla. Maybe
Sure.
also because of the tax cuts. But anyway, so
Probably.
those ecosystems are striving around the globe. But what is missing, I think, is a network of ecosystems, or an ecosystem of ecosystem, or a global ecosystem. Yeah. So that's my vision, to create this kind of global network of ecosystem building on the local strengths. Yeah? So I think it's important to grow closer together locally, finding your partners, but also understanding where I maybe don't have the knowledge, the competences, and I can't bring everything home.
That's the nice thing about knowledge, right? You can transfer knowledge quite easily. There's no physical limitation because internet. This innovative thing.
There's often a little bit like a personal limitation where you say, I don't want to share my knowledge.
Perhaps. And that's, I want to touch on that in a bit. Also from a really practical point of view, like your daily work, how does it compare? But maybe to round this up, the global picture. You said like, okay, we are now planting the seeds in Mexico, California, Canada. You even mentioned Rwanda, for example. So by that, you have the global system that is interconnected, where you can transfer knowledge, but also build up the local competence and build upon the local kind of the uniqueness, right? Yes. Because I think that is very important, that you cannot force a cultural, even a company culture identity to a local community which has a certain way of living, certain way of starting their day and ending their day, working on weekends or not, or et cetera, taking holidays. So this is also, as I understand you, a very important aspect on taking this into account.
Yes, for sure. I mean, that's, in my opinion, the biggest. Yeah? So, as I said, we never would call it a PEM facility, but rather we want to help the local community to build their own vision, their own focus. And like a forest, it's hard to tell them, hey, you do this, you do this, you do this, but rather seeing, okay, there are just some ideas popping up, and then helping them to grow and giving them the
you're providing the water, the surroundings,
correct,
the wind, the sun, and then you're trying to let it grow.
That's, I think, we want to build on the local strengths. What is really there, on the people, on the talent, but also on the history. So Windsor, for example, has a huge manufacturing history. There are so many automation companies, molding companies, world leaders. But I mean, now the business in the whole Detroit area is a little bit at risk. So they need to reinvent themselves, and they call it automobility there. So they are saying, okay, we're having the cyber topics, we have the manufacturing topics, and we just need to focus a little bit different on new topics. And we are strong, but we are not copying the Silicon Valley. We are not having the same innovation, the same inventions like they have in the Silicon Valley. And now the same for Mexico. I always hear in Mexico is not an innovation country. The people are not innovative. The people are not creative. And I think those people are very creative. So they are masters in their field of creativity. Maybe not this new Tesla, but in their field. For example,
also addressing their market needs probably much better, because using this Tesla, or just a general example of a luxury EV, which has all the fancy functionality of, I don't know, climate, so AC within the car, or some autonomous driving. I mean, I think this is a very important field, but maybe to an emerging country like Mexico, which is still also in the development a little bit, to keep it a little bit more, I don't want to say simple, but more to the real actual current needs, so that it allows also to make the product probably cheaper and more potentially durable, because the less parts, the more reliable product becomes, right? So is this framing this kind of?
That's exactly what I mean. Okay. So as I said, I was delivering those sausages.
Yeah, and beer.
And beer. Actually, it's a very good beer in Mexico. So anyway, they wouldn't use a Tesla for that. They even wouldn't use a Mercedes truck for that. So they need a different kind of vehicle, as the roads are very bumpy, as they have thousands of stops, as they are using the vehicles for 12, 15 years. so the requirements are also different, and maybe there's a different product fitting. And you see now a lot of startups in Mexico in the EV space. They're maybe not so prominent. They don't have maybe the cash of a Tesla, but they have good ideas. And I don't know where that leads to, if they may be bought or... Yeah, you even see a lot of innovation in the tier 1, tier 2. The Mexican, they are global players. You don't really know them normally, as you are not in the market. But they're also very innovative. So it's fun to work with them.
Yeah, and that may also spark some business opportunities in the future for the other locations, right? That's, I think, the point that we made. You can transfer the knowledge, but in case there is a business case for that, you can also, from a production point of view, perhaps look at suppliers. Like,
correct.
Can we maybe take this part from Mexico, and then, of course, and then you kind of have the underlying structure and communication infrastructure that allows for efficient exchange.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So one example is the Ego. The Ego was founded here in Aachen.
Yeah.
And now there's a joint venture with a Mexican company, and I was in Monterey seeing an Ego there on the street with a Mexican license plate. It's so cool to see that, really.
Yeah,
to really, if you remember how it was just an idea here in Aachen, and then seeing that vehicle in Mexico on the road, it's amazing. Yeah. So, and this kind of transfer we want to open up with this network.
Yeah,
so in all directions with talents. We have currently 2 PhD students at your institute from Mexico. Yeah, so that is the other way. Yeah, so we bring people here also to become part of the team here, and for me that's fun. Yeah, I like that. So
cool.
I think we are living in a global world, but also we need to focus on our local network.
Yeah. Okay. So if we come to the shop floor, so to speak, to the daily routines, maybe we can draw like 3 or 4 pictures in comparison, where you can highlight maybe some event or some setting that you were in, where you say like, okay, this was specific for Mexico. This is how we do it in Mexico. This is how we do it in Germany or Europe. And then for the US, and maybe we can give some examples that it becomes really apparent. I think like this sausage and beer delivering example was already picturing it, but more from an engineering point of view, innovation point of view, within the development departments. How would you compare, for example, working on some drive component of the drive unit? Some example. Do you have one?
Maybe I start with some interesting fact I learned in a culture seminar
cool.
about the US. So Germans are tending, if you have a sales pitch, you go A, B, C, D. You start with, hey, I was born 87, and then I went to the university, and I'm a mechanical engineer. And normally the person falls asleep already until you start talking about whatever you want to sell. In the US, you go, I will save you €100 if you work with me. And then you go B, so you leave out the personal story. You go why. What is your product doing? See what problem it's solving, and then you say again. And with this, I will save you $100. Yeah, so it's they are very business driven. The people there, all the conversations are somehow focusing on the business. So even if you do small talk, the intent is to business.
I like this ABCD, like the German chronology. And then what you say, I think if I interpret it correct, is DCB. D.
Correct. That's correct.
That's cool.
So it's a little bit different, and also connections in the US are maybe not as deep as you have them in Germany.
Oh, okay.
And if that's very funny, compared to Mexico, it's completely the opposite. Yeah? So the personal connection is the most important. If you have someone you trust, you can do basically everything. You can fuck up, but you still work with them. But this personal connection is much more important. Yes? But really also not because you learned it somewhere, but because you're really interested in the person. Yeah, so
So the culture demands being personally interested, not having a distant relationship where you're saying, okay, on a professional level, like in Germany, you are very close to another and are really good colleagues, but you may not even talk to another privately, or that just don't have a relation really. There you say it's more a one.
Yeah,
so to
I
speak.
think it's more important. Let's say. Yeah, so it's normally you don't try to sell on the first date. Yeah, but rather building a connection.
Cool.
And I don't say it's now, of course, stereotypes. There's definitely also Germans which go the other way. There's definitely Americans.
To getting general understanding, I think it's a fair thing to point out some general.
And that's maybe what I like about my
marks.
daily job. So to have this kind of mixture, to work with Germans, Mexicans, Indians, Africans, and take maybe what is good there, because I like this DBCD. That's in general a good idea to open up a conversation, to say why you want to talk with the person. So taking what you need from the different experience, and now going to the engineering. I think in general the methodology behind it is very similar. The technical problem is the same. I think what makes it different is the culture behind, and maybe the perception. So I think even if it's a stereotype, the German engineering mindset is somehow in the system here. Same as the American innovation. Hey, we will do it.
Startup culture.
Let's risk it. I don't mind.
Investing,
And in Mexico, we do it and let's try it out. So it's somehow still part of it, and it's hard to grasp it on a concrete example, in my opinion. But it definitely creates a lot of friction normally. So
and that's where you and the team and everyone comes into play, and trying to get rid of the friction basically by providing the right, coming back to the forest and the water and the sun, providing the right infrastructure that the seed can grow.
Yeah, but also, I mean, that was the infrastructure is for the network. But now speaking about our company there, our team there, we invest a lot in culture. We invest a lot in workshops, in the organizational structure that allows friction and solves it. So it's okay if there's a friction. So for example, we have the tension meeting, which is like a meeting where we come together every second week. We take 2-3 hours time, and people can raise really topics, and they can raise from everything. Even they can tell me I'm an idiot.
Interesting.
I mean, there are rules not to do it like you're an idiot, but rather why I'm an idiot. And that helps a lot, because I mean, you normally don't speak about those, or you're not asking your boss or telling your boss.
So you're providing a room and like space and time, so to speak, that allows for this open conversation. Yeah.
And there are many other things we do.
As an efficient, driven German, I would say, or I have to say, to be honest, I would think like, okay, a meeting that takes 2 to 3 hours, can that lead anywhere other than confusion and exhaustion?
It's really exhausting. It really hurts. So you can cry. It's really everything can happen. But I think, as we are all humans, it's good invested time. If everyone is really feeling good at work and bringing his full potential to work, you see it. You maybe don't see it immediately. But after half a year, the results are much better.
The culture just becomes more resilient, perhaps.
And I think
the company culture.
Maybe the story behind it. So, I have had different bosses, and I was always interested in leadership. So I took a lot of seminars. I worked a lot in leadership, read a lot of books, and there are many ways or many directions which we're going. I like the book from Frederic Laloux, which is called Reinventing Organizations. He looked into different organizations, trying to understand, or good organization, future organization, what makes them different. And they have basically the idea of shared responsibility and being agile. So in our world, it's hard to have a 5-year plan. I mean, COVID, no one expected that. We lost all our business from one day to another. We had zero income. And I had a lot of sleepless nights. So my team was at risk. And I really like my team. And I didn't want to let anyone go. And being open about it and having them also being integrated in finding solutions somehow helped us to solve that problem. And we, in the end, in the North American team, didn't have to. We found ways to keep people, and that was amazing. And that now, of course, the team is even stronger and now pushing a lot for the direction for our common vision. So we want to help people grow, develop them, make them learn. And for us, it's important. And building that trust, building that kind of long-term commitment, I think is very well invested time, even as an efficient German. Although I think I'm not a typical German. Yeah.
Okay, understand. Yeah, and so you would say maybe to what we can learn and what we can transfer. I think that's an important part here, right? So we see something, or you see it for us. We talk about it and say this maybe, and that's the question to you. Is that something that what you would say we could incorporate into our daily business, into our corporate culture, to foster, the culture or the environment within the corporation, and that's the final goal, right? To foster and accelerate innovation. Yeah,
I think.
Even though we have the German rigid mindset, that's what I mean.
So I think, of course, you.
And I hope people don't take this literally with the rigid mindset. I think.
No, I mean, I work in the US. Yeah, so the US is a very capital-oriented country.
Yeah.
So profit, business, revenue are the numbers, the things you're talking about, and the things you have in mind. And I also think we need to earn money to grow.
Yeah.
To help our innovation, our mindset, our idea of a sustainable, better mobility implement. I cannot do that myself if I'm just preaching about how nice we are. But I need a team. I need visibility. I need partners. And that only you can create if you grow, if you earn money. So I don't think it's contradicting each other, but rather supporting each other.
Okay.
But of course, you have to first have the trust to also endure times
so
like COVID.
So the trust on the personal level, especially as you pointed out in Mexico, is something we could learn from, and we could also profit from.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think we didn't have an example for Canada yet. Do we have one? Maybe.
To be honest, my first time in Canada, I was dreaming about maple trees, bears. Yeah? So I was first time in Canada. I was in Windsor.
That came unexpected.
And it's nothing like I had it in mind. It's pretty American, to be honest. It's 10 minutes drive from Detroit, so it looks almost exactly the same.
Across the border.
A little bit nicer though. So I really enjoyed it there. The people, I think, are not.
Canadians are said to be very friendly and very
they are. Although Americans, in my I like.
But also depends on where you are. I think regionally and in the US, I think East-West is. I think my experience is a little bit different, but I'm not an expert on that.
In my opinion, it is always depending on yourself. So
okay.
If you are
always walk with
nice,
a smile.
Yes. So I think.
Got it.
I like all three of them, but I think for me it was very helpful to be there. So the people helped me a lot. They supported a lot. Really, supportive. Yeah. So they believed in the vision. They believed in what we are doing, and since then they are really supporting us.
Okay. When they give the elevator pitch, we in the beginning we've talked about A, B, C, D. The German way. I think then you said like leave out the A in the US culture or corporate culture, start with a D, then B, C, and then D again to really make the point on you will earn from for investing.
I will solve your problem.
By investing in me.
It doesn't have to be money.
Or of course, it depends on the use case. But sure. So what would the elevator pitch look like in Canada?
That's a good question. I think more like
a mixture in between.
E, B, C, D. Yeah. So I think they are also very interested in you. Yeah? So it's a lot about, hey, maybe we start with you. Yeah, it's very interesting.
So the A then, here. Or
I think the A is in this example. So the A is about my history, but the E is more. Hey, I looked into your company.
Okay. So that's the E then.
Got it.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but don't.
No, but I mean, of course, it's not
spontaneous
completely analytical and personal experience.
Having so much stereotypes here today.
No, but maybe to also emphasize this, it's not about drawing stereotypes here, but just obtaining a general understanding how different cultures, different continents do innovation, and what can we learn from that. And I think that's where you drew a nice picture on in the example of 3 locations that you are working in, how the general perspective is, and that of course, and that's maybe be emphasized here again, it's not about drawing stereotypes, no, and it shouldn't be a political debate afterwards, but getting a general sense that Mexico, for example, as you said, there you really have to understand that the personal domain is extremely important.
Yeah.
The US, you said, okay, maybe don't consider failure too much, because it will be accepted if you really go for it, if you really try to, and yeah, you can expect in Canada, for example, as I understand, you to have, especially also, or certainly also for the other ones, but maybe a little bit more emphasized, an openness towards, hey, how can we work together with you? How can we support you? Being very open.
Yeah, and I think we need all of this. So as I said, for me, it's beautiful to work in this.
Yeah, I got it. Cool.
Multicultural approach. And now working in Africa is it's a complete new experience. It's again something new I learned, and I think we need each other on the world. We cannot just isolate ourselves. That's not possible anymore.
Yeah. I'm curious. We're talking about ecosystems, right? So that they develop, that they like those seeds can grow. But of course, you as a company also within an ecosystem. We could talk about the cultural one right now, but also on the political domain. How's the support there? If we look at it a little bit more rationally, perhaps, do you feel in this case not, but see and observe a support in all different locations, or would you say there are also nuances with regard to incentives and also the political support?
Yeah, maybe in general, I think let's pick the example of battery because I think that's a good example.
Okay.
I think Europe understood the change to e-mobility a little bit earlier than North America, both Mexico, US, Canada. So we are, I think, in battery a little bit ahead from the research, from the people being trained, from the investments here, from the companies setting up. But now the US is going all in with the new Biden Inflation Reduction Act and all the investment happening into this field. So there's $2.8 billion invested in clean energy and batteries.
I think in 20 companies.
Correct.
In 12 states.
Yes. And there is also additionally 30 billion tax credits for those technologies. There's a new part of the Inflation Reduction Act is a subsidy of $7,500 if 60% of the revenue, 50% of the money, or of the 7,500, if 60% of the revenue is, or more than 60% of the revenue of the battery happened in North America, and the other 50% is if the material, 40% of the material value is gained
sourced in the US
in the company or countries with a free trade agreement. That's not only
okay.
But anyway, that will lead to really invest
massive innovation in that region.
Investment into that topic. There's a projection that they create 150,000 jobs till 2030 in the field, and new jobs. And here everyone is talking about the loss of jobs. And so I think they are going all in now, and the US is really pushing. Same for the Canadian government. So they are really fighting also for the investments of the big battery players, for example, but also for the mining topics. So lithium is a huge topic. And
in Canada as well?
Yeah, and Canada is in general huge in raw materials. They have a lot of mines.
I know that it was already a topic in the US and in Nevada, for example, but I didn't know that they are also looking into Canadian resources.
All the raw materials.
Okay, got it.
Same for copper.
So
there's big mines and big investments. Also for the fuel cell, we see already Vancouver has Ballard, has a lot of focus on the fuel cell already.
You mean Ballard Power, the company, right?
So they're headquartered in Vancouver. So there is already something happening. In Mexico, I think it's a little bit different, as in Mexico we have some states which are very progressive. I think similar like California, But now the whole US is going into electric. And in Mexico, I think some states are not really yet going.
So it's more state dependent?
It's more state dependent.
Interesting. Okay.
There's, interestingly, next week, a roundtable with the foreign minister and the economy minister or secretary of economy of Mexico. And they are invited different CEOs to discuss the question of sustainable energy and electric mobility in Mexico.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious about that. I'm myself invited.
Well, just was about to say that you also booked a flight there, right?
Yes, I booked a flight, and it's amazing to be part of such discussions. But I think in Mexico, it's interesting if you are in Mexico City, if you are in Monterrey, there's also the need for electrification. Yeah? So they have huge problems with the pollution and with the traffic.
Okay.
So electrification is a solution also for them.
Okay.
But also they are heavily dependent on the production of electric vehicles. So we see now with the political tension between Asia and the US that, for example, CATL is looking into a production facility in Chihuahua and Coahuila. Coahuila. That's 2 states. So they are investing not in the US, but investing in Mexico. So we see also that Mexico is now at least understanding that there's a lot of investment or jobs to be created. So they are also trying, and I think they need a little bit longer. Some states are a little bit more progressive, some states not. And the central government is now really trying also to go.
So you're also seeing, to understand that, again, the cooperation between the US and Mexico, that is going to be strengthened in the future because of the Chinese American difficulties, or?
I hope so.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
after
it shouldn't be a political discussion, but it's just from a company perspective, is being in both regions, being active there.
No, for us, it's important to be involved in all 3
Yeah,
regions
sure.
and even beyond. So we're working.
But I mean, because you're building the network, that was why I was asking if there will be more active collaboration, maybe.
Yes.
I see
that
Central and North
happening.
American continent.
Yes.
Collaborations.
At least on
supported.
the industry side, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
So that's important.
Yeah,
and,
that's good. Good, cool. And then if we come maybe to draw a little picture on. You mentioned earlier that the products, for example, the Mexican product line will look different than the US, will look different perhaps than the Canadian. Is there anything where you say there are big developments underway that are really local there and then may be exported to the other region later on? Because yes, there are different innovation happening regarding different products, or do you think like it's more also comparing it to Europe, it's more just one basically, like okay, they are building small, medium and big size electric vehicles, or are there really some unique developments that you would say that are locally specific right now that are actually going on, and maybe to the near future where we can see forward to give a little outlook on what to expect?
So first of all, I think what as a German to understand is that the markets are looking very different, even in the US, Canada, and Mexico, but also globally even more. Yeah? So for example, in the US, we don't really have the issue of charging infrastructure, although this is a big topic there, but only 11% of the projected EV need public charging. So they normally all have houses, like small houses, so they all have a charging station at home, or can have a charging station. So the charging infrastructure becomes a very different problem in the US than here. Of course, they have longer distances, so they need more charging, opportunity charging, something like that, fast charging. But even there, it looks different. If you now look at the Mexican market, you have very different kind of vehicle segments, cars, also mobility solutions. And I want to expand now maybe the view a little bit on Africa.
Yeah, that'd be great. Because I think I certainly, and probably many listeners also don't, have an idea what's rolling there.
You wouldn't see many Teslas driving on a road in Kigali, but you see a lot of electric two-wheelers. So that is already happening there. Because, I mean, the mobility, main mobility is 2- and 3-wheelers there. So they have and buses, of course. So those will be electrified.
Okay.
But not only because of sustainability reasons, but also because of the business case behind. So the people can save money driving electric. They also open up new opportunities with the battery. So you can take that in your house. You have electric energy
modular
in
systems.
So before you don't have a light or an electric light.
You mean as
you take the battery,
to
suddenly you can allow that. So it also opens a lot of
supply your
opportunities
household. Okay.
in the communities there, especially in remote areas.
So you have one investment and can use it for mobility and in the evening when you're home.
Correct. And you can maybe have centrally in your village a charging station where you can charge those solar powered.
Or at the corporation you're working at, perhaps, because then they can support you with incentives of maybe those are European or whatever companies that invest there, like you're doing, and then provide the infrastructure that is needed, and then they can, by means of the battery, transfer the
so there
energy
are many
home.
ways where electric mobility opens up new business opportunities, but also helps the community and people have a better life. And that's I think what is beautiful. And
that's cool.
And, I like that. And the question is, I think we cannot steer that from Germany. You need somehow different players to do that. And especially, I mean, Volkswagen wouldn't have an interest in that. So who would? Maybe some bike manufacturers. I don't know. But I think we are very narrow-minded if we just look at cars when we talk about electric mobility. Buses is another huge topic, especially in Latin America. Public transport, to electrify that. That's another big topic, I think, coming.
That's a quite interesting outlook, and I'm really curious what you will learn and bring to this table again in the future when we talk about this again, and with your experiences in Africa.
Pleasure.
So thank you very much, Chris, for giving us local insights into each of the different regions, and also a quite inspiring outlook. Looking forward to the next conversation.
Yeah, pleasure to come back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great.